I assume that most of you know by now that I've actually studied in Finland for a year before. And even though I did my research before going there are still some things that I kinda wish someone would have told me. So luckily you have me, and I'm gonna tell you the things I wish people would have told me. We're instantly gonna start with a big one, and that's being how expensive Finland is. I don't know where you're from, but unless you're from a country like Sweden or Norway, Finland is gonna be really expensive. People had told me that the northern countries were expensive, but I didn't know it was gonna be that expensive. And keep in mind, I was a student back then, so I didn't really have much money. Even if we would actually go to student parties, for example, a beer there would very easily be €3.50 each. No. And those were even the student prices, right? If you would go to a normal bar, those prices could easily rise up until like €6.50. I think that's like the hourly salary of like a minimum wage in Belgium. But luckily to almost all problems there are solutions. Because if you're planning to go out and you know the prices are that expensive, what do? You just pre-visit your friend's apartment, save a lot of money, and it'll be very fun. Another thing I actually wish I know is how awkward the people actually can be. Of course, I'm not saying all Finnish people are awkward, because that would not be right. But the majority of Finnish people are actually not that social, and they don't really talk much. But I guess that's just part of their culture. The more you actually start seeing them, the more open they actually get, and the more they will actually start talking to you. This is definitely something that I noticed with the majority of Finnish people I actually met. And they are so nice once you know them. And also, a great way to actually meet Finnish people is at a bar. Because even though Finnish people are quite awkward sometimes, take a Finnish person to a bar, give that person some drinks, and they will become the most social person out there. It's amazing to see how alcohol affects some people. Oh, and once you're there and actually talking with some Finnish people, make sure to ask them if they can teach you some new Finnish words. They will probably have a laugh by the way you're butchering every single word. You'll probably learn some new, probably bad words, but you'll have a good time in the end. Vittu mitä paskaa. Another thing I wish someone would have told me is actually how difficult the language will be. Like, to be honest, every language is kind of difficult for me because I'm not really good at languages, but Finnish is on like a whole different level. With their weird grammar, their weird vocabulary, and how they just keep pasting words behind each other, it's something. But it is quite nice to listen to actually, because they pronounce their letters a little bit differently sometimes. So it's a bit strange but nice at the same time. And it's also quite cool how they can just keep making words longer and longer and longer. I wouldn't be surprised if Finnish actually had the longest word out of all languages. Since I actually had to pick a language course back then, I didn't really have many options, and Finnish sounded kind of cool, and maybe it would be like a cool party trick, you know, to count to 10 in Finnish. Yeah. And besides that, since I was going to be there for a year anyway, might as well learn a little bit of Suomi. And in the end, it was actually quite a nice experience. And I didn't even have an exam, so didn't really have to worry about studying. Another thing I wish someone would have told me is how cool their culture actually is. I feel like not many people put much emphasis on this, but they actually have quite a different culture than most countries. They have this black kind of candy called salmiakki, which is really big there. It's like this licorice kind of thing, which you either love or hate. But I feel like most foreigners actually dislike this, but I didn't really mind it. They have this massive sauna culture, like literally everywhere where you go, there's like a sauna. I lived in 2 different apartment complexes. Both of them had saunas. I've been to different gyms there. All of them had saunas. There's like no escaping the sauna culture there. Oh, and there's nothing as nice as popping in the sauna after training. It's so good. I really miss it. They also have a lot of different beers and actually have multiple words of saying beers. Olut, kalja, I don't even remember the rest. And something they do in saunas is actually put a little bit of beer on the coals. Gives like this bread kind of smell, which is something you have to be a fan of. But I didn't really mind it at all. And another cool thing about their student culture is how every student is supposed to have like their own little overall. They only wear this up until their middle, and they collect all these badges. As every party you visit, you get a different badge. And it's really easy to see who actually goes to many parties and who doesn't, because there are people whose overalls are just covered top to bottom. Another cool thing I wish I knew about Finland is actually how easy it is to go from the capital or any major city to different major cities. So when I first went to Finland, I actually flew all the way to Vaasa, which looking back at it actually cost me so much more money, so I easily could have actually saved some money if I would have just taken the bus. Of course, this does take a little bit longer, but if you pay a little bit extra for the front row seats, your travel there would actually be very nice. And I think the travel from Helsinki to Vaasa was, I think, like 7 or 8 hours. So it wasn't even that bad. I think I ended up doing it like 8 or 10 times during my whole stay there because we would often have to be in Helsinki for major activities. So if you're planning to go to Finland and you want to travel around, make sure you remember the company Onibus. There might be different companies out there as well, but I just mainly use Onibus and I have some great experience with them. And then the last thing I wish someone would have told me is how nice their climate actually is. Here in Belgium, we tend to complain a lot about the cold weather. Since I never really experienced like a full winter where there was like snow for multiple months on end, having this for the first time was actually really nice. And it was very different to how it is here in Belgium, because here in Belgium when there's snow it becomes this kind of yucky mud instantly, so it's definitely a lot different. And having this constant snow also makes it very easy to actually go places during the night, because since everything is white, it is so easy to just look around because you pretty much see everything. Of course, during the winter those dark nights can actually become a little bit depressing because you end up not really seeing much daylight at all. It happened to me that I would go to school being dark and I would come back from school with it being dark again. So it almost feels as if it's just constant darkness, which is also, I guess, why some people supplement vitamin D over there, because during those times they don't really get enough sunlight. And with this awesome climate also comes the amazing phenomenon of seeing the northern lights, which I was very happy to see a couple of times. And if you have never seen them before, I definitely recommend you to go and visit the northern countries during the prime seasons, so you have a higher chance of actually seeing them. And even though some days were very cold during the Finnish winter, in general it was very manageable, because you would really get used to it and you would just face that you have to go outside in a big jacket and just be prepared that it might be a little bit cold outside. And to be honest, it was something you got used to very quickly. But hey, you're going to Finland, right? Because if you're going, you might as well watch this video here so you don't make the mistakes that I did. But if you're not sure if you actually want to go to Finland, then maybe you should watch this video right here, because I can at least convince you.